Jiwoo Park stood inside the Galactic Classification Station, waiting for her results. The room was white and cold. Everything on the station felt cold to her. She had arrived early in the morning after taking the transport tube from her apartment. The journey had taken 30 minutes, and she had spent that time reading news on her personal device. Now she was here, and she was tired. The scanner was huge. It looked like a metal tower that could touch the ceiling. The Zixthari, who controlled most of the galaxy, had built this machine to sort people into categories. Everyone had to come here at some point in their life. This was Jiwoo's day. She was 26 years old. She came from Earth, a planet that humans called home. Earth was not very important in the galaxy yet. Humans were new to space travel, and they were still learning how to fit into the big universe. But Jiwoo had moved to Station Nexus 7 to work and make money. She wanted a better life than what Earth could offer her. The scanner had been running for 1 hour. Its sensors moved around her body, making quiet sounds. A small light passed over her skin again and again. Jiwoo tried not to move. She stood with her arms crossed, waiting for the machine to finish its work. Finally, the machine stopped. A voice came from the speaker above her head. The voice was not human. It sounded like wind blowing through metal tubes. "Classification complete," the voice said. "Subject, Jiwoo Park, Terran female, age 26. Designation, Precursor-Class." The word hung in the air like something heavy. Jiwoo did not understand at first. She asked the machine to repeat what it said. The machine repeated the same words. Jiwoo frowned. She did not feel any different than she had felt 5 minutes ago. But something in the room had changed. The air felt different. Even the walls seemed to notice. A Zixthari official entered the chamber. His name was Velcris. He was very tall and made of something that looked like crystal. He had 6 arms, and his eyes were the color of clear water. He moved very slowly, as if he was thinking about each step he took. "You have been classified," Velcris said. He sounded surprised. "Yes," Jiwoo said. "The machine just told me." "Precursor-Class," Velcris continued. He looked at a device in one of his hands. "This is unusual, very unusual. In fact, this is almost impossible. Precursor-Class has not been seen in recorded history. There are no living beings with this classification." Jiwoo did not know what to say. She had come here to get classified so she could keep her job. The company had required it. Everyone had to have a classification. It was part of how the galaxy worked. High classifications got better jobs. Low classifications got lower jobs. It was simple and boring to Jiwoo. "What does Precursor-Class mean?" she asked. Velcris looked at her with all 3 of his eyes. He blinked slowly, which seemed to mean he was confused or surprised. "It means the scanner has found genetic markers in your body that match the ancient precursor species. The precursors were the first beings to seed this galaxy with life. They went to many planets and created the first civilizations. No one has seen them for millions of years. They are believed to be extinct." "So they are my great-great-great ancestors?" Jiwoo asked. "Possibly," Velcris said. "The markers suggest that your genetic line contains material from the precursor DNA. This is extremely valuable information. You should be very proud." Jiwoo thought about this for a moment. She felt nothing special. She did not feel like an ancient alien. She felt hungry, actually. She had skipped breakfast that morning because she wanted to arrive early for her appointment. "Does this mean I get a better salary?" she asked. Velcris did not answer right away. He looked at his device again. "You do not understand what this means, do you?" "No," Jiwoo admitted, "but I understand that I need to get back to work. My supervisor will be angry if I take too long. Is there anything else?" "You may leave," Velcris said slowly, "but you must understand. This classification will change your life. You are now the most important person in this entire station." Probably the most important person in this entire sector of space. Jiwoo stood up and brushed off her simple gray clothes. They were the clothes she wore to work every day. They were comfortable and cheap. "I appreciate that," she said politely. "But right now I need to go file my reports. I have about 2,000 records that need to be processed before the end of the day. My boss, Min Soo, does not like it when we get behind on work." She walked toward the door. Velcris called out to her. "But the classification," he said. "You must realize what this means for your future." Jiwoo stopped and turned back. She looked at the tall crystal being with his 6 arms and his 3 eyes. She saw the confusion on his face. She felt sorry for him. "It means I have a fancy label now," she said. "But I am still the same person who walked in here this morning. I still need to pay my rent. I still need to eat lunch. I still need to go to work tomorrow. So if this classification helps me do any of those things better, that is good. If it does not, then it is just a label." She left the chamber and walked back toward the transport tube. Behind her, Velcris stood in the White Room, holding his device, trying to understand how the most important discovery in his entire career was walking away from him as if it was nothing. Jiwoo took the transport tube back to her apartment. The journey gave her time to think. She looked out the window at the stars. They looked the same as they always did, beautiful and far away. She did not feel any different. She was not glowing. She did not have new powers. She was just Jiwoo Park. And now she had a new label that almost no one in the galaxy had. When she arrived at her apartment, she made some rice and vegetables for lunch. She sat at her small table and ate while reading messages on her personal device. There were no messages about her classification yet. The news had not spread. She was grateful for that. She finished her lunch and prepared for her afternoon shift at the data processing center. This was her routine. This was her life. A new classification would not change that. At least, that is what she thought. She did not know that Velcris had already sent the information to the Galactic News Network. She did not know that her name was appearing on screens across 1,000 different stations and planets. She did not know that beings from dozens of different species were reading her name and wondering about her. She did not know that her simple, ordinary life was about to become very complicated. All she knew was that she had work to do, and she did not want to be late. Jiwoo woke up to the sound of noise outside her apartment. It was early in the morning. She had not yet finished her sleep. She looked at the clock on her wall. It showed 6:17 in the morning. Normally, she woke up at 7 Ka. Something was wrong. She put on her simple clothes and went to her window. Her apartment was small, with only 1 bedroom and 1 main room where she cooked and ate. The window showed a view of the external airlock and the docking area outside. What she saw made her stop. There were ships outside, not just 1 or 2 ships, but many ships. They were lined up around her section of the station. She could see Zixathari vessels, which were angular and sharp. She could see Quaravathi ships, which were round and smooth like bubbles. She could see merchant vessels from species she did not recognize. They were all here, and they were all around her apartment building. Jiwoo felt a cold feeling in her chest. She did not understand what was happening. She turned on her news feed. The screen filled with her own face. Her name was everywhere. Every news channel in the sector was talking about her. "Precursor-Class human discovered after millions of years," one headline said. "Genetic breakthrough, human contains ancient DNA," said another. "Most important discovery of the century," read a third. She watched videos of herself entering the classification station. She watched herself leaving. She watched Velcris being interviewed by journalists. He was talking about the significance of her classification. He was explaining how rare and important this was. Jiwoo turned off the news feed. She made herself a cup of coffee from her small kitchen machine. The coffee tasted like it always did, cheap and a little bit burned. She drank it anyway. She tried to go back to bed, but it was too late. She was awake now. She checked her personal messages. There were thousands of new messages. Thousands. She did not know this many people existed, but they were all writing to her now. Some messages offered her money. 10 million credits for genetic samples, one said. Another said, 100 million credits for exclusive access to your DNA research. There were offers from companies, from universities, from governments, from private collectors. Everyone wanted something from her. Other messages were different. Some were threatening. You must not be allowed to breed, one message said. We will sterilize you to prevent inferior genetics from spreading, said another. The precursor bloodline must be kept pure. Submit to our breeding program, read a third. Jiwoo deleted these messages. She did not want to think about them. She got ready to go to work. She put on her work clothes and prepared her bag. She decided she would not pay attention to any of this. She would go to work and do her job like normal. That was the best thing to do. When she left her apartment, the crowd outside grew even bigger. There were beings of many different species standing in the hallway. Some had cameras, some had recording devices. They all wanted to ask her questions. Is it true you are descended from the precursors? One journalist asked. Will you help my species achieve greater technology? Another asked. How much money do you want for your genetic material? A third asked. Jiwoo did not stop to answer any of them. She walked through the crowd and headed to the transport station. The crowd followed her. By the time she reached the transport tube, there were at least 50 beings behind her, all trying to talk to her at the same time. The transport tube took her to the data processing center. This was a different part of the station. The building was gray and functional. There were many workers here, all from different species. Most were humans, but there were also some Zixthari workers, a few Quarvathi, and several other species that Jiwoo did not know very well. When she arrived at her workstation, her supervisor, Min-soo, was waiting for her. Min-soo was also Korean, like Jiwoo. He was older, in his 40s, and he had been living on Station Nexus 7 for 15 years. He knew how to survive here. He kept his head down and did his job. Min-soo pulled Jiwoo into a private office immediately. He closed the door behind her. He looked worried. What did you do? He asked. Nothing, Jiwoo said. I went to get classified like everyone else. Do you know what they are calling you out there? Min-soo asked. He pointed out the window. Outside, Jiwoo could see news feeds on the external screens. Her face was on everyone. You are the most famous person on this station right now. Maybe the most famous person in this sector. I do not want to be famous, Jiwoo said. I want to file my reports. Min-soo sat down heavily in his chair. He rubbed his face. This is serious, Jiwoo. People are saying you are a precursor. They are saying you might have abilities we do not understand. They are saying you could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. I do not have any abilities, Jiwoo said. I can use a computer. I can file reports. I can make coffee from a machine. That is all. You do not understand, Min-soo said. He leaned forward. Out there in the galaxy, the Zixthari have controlled everything for thousands of years. They decide what happens. The Quarvathi are always trying to challenge them. Everyone else follows. But now there is you, a human with precursor genetics. That changes everything. Jiwoo sat down. She looked at her supervisor. She had worked for Min-soo for 2 years. He was a good person. He treated his workers fairly. He did not have dreams of power or wealth like many people did. What should I do? She asked. I do not know, Min-soo admitted. Normally, in this situation, a person would try to sell themselves. They would work for one side or the other. They would try to gain power and money. But you do not seem like that kind of person. I am not, Jiwoo said. I just want my life back. Min-soo stood up and walked to his window. He looked out at the space station and the stars beyond. Your life has already changed. I can feel it. The whole station can feel it. The whole galaxy will feel it. A Precursor-Class human. It is too big. It is too important. Everything is going to be different now. That night, Ji-woo sat in her apartment and recorded a message. She used her personal camera and her communication device. She spoke directly to the recording, trying to be clear and honest. "My name is Ji-woo Park," she said. "I know that many of you have heard about my classification. I want to tell you what I think about it. First, my genetics are my own. I am not going to sell samples or participate in experiments. Second, I am just a person. I am not special. I am not going to save anyone or lead anyone. Third, I want to be left alone to live my life. If you are interested in me for any other reason, I suggest you find something else to do with your time." She sent the message to every public channel she could find. Then she turned off her communication device and tried to sleep. Outside her window, the ships remained. They did not leave. More ships arrived during the night. The crowd of journalists and seekers grew bigger and bigger. By morning, there would be hundreds of them. By the next day, there would be thousands. Ji-woo did not know this yet. She lay in her bed and listened to the sounds of the station around her. The hum of the machines that kept everyone alive. The distant sounds of beings moving and working. The quiet that always came in the very late night. She thought about her life before the classification. It had been simple. Boring, maybe, but good. She had known what to expect. She had known what tomorrow would bring. Now she did not know anything. The future was uncertain and strange. It was frightening. She did not sleep much that night. By the time morning came, everything had changed. 1 week had passed since Ji-woo's classification became public. 1 week of crowds, messages, and confusion. She was tired. Her apartment felt like a prison now. She could not leave without being followed. She could not go to work without being stopped by people who wanted to ask her questions or make her offers. The situation had gotten worse, not better. The crowds outside her apartment had grown larger. Now there were security forces trying to keep them away. Zixthari military guards stood on one side of the hallway. Korvathi security forces stood on another side. They watched each other carefully. They were waiting to see which side would try to take Ji-woo first. Ji-woo's supervisor Min-soo had told her to stay home. The company did not want her coming to work. They said it was too dangerous. It was causing too much disruption. So she stayed in her apartment and waited. A message came through her secure communication line. It was from someone named Hae-jun. The message said, "I am a security officer. I work on this station. I saw your message and what you said about being left alone. I respect that. I want to help you stay safe. Do you want to meet?" Ji-woo was cautious about messages from strangers, but she was also desperate. She needed help. She needed someone on her side. She agreed to meet Hae-jun. Hae-jun came to her apartment through a service tunnel that not many people knew about. She was a woman in her late 20s, with short dark hair and a serious face. She wore a security uniform. She moved quietly and carefully. "I know we have never met," Hae-jun said, "but I want you to know that I support what you are doing. You said you wanted to be left alone. That took courage. Everyone else wants something from you, but you said no." "I do not understand why that is so important," Ji-woo said. "It is important because almost no one does that," Hae-jun explained. "Everyone in this galaxy tries to climb. They try to get higher than they are. They try to get more power, more money, more respect. But you said you just want your old life back. That is revolutionary." Over the next few days, Hae-jun introduced Ji-woo to other people. There was Tae-oh, who worked in the station's technical systems. Tae-oh was smart with computers and machines. There was Na-ri, who worked in communications. She knew how to send messages across the galaxy quietly without the official channels tracing them. There was Dae-jung, who was a former soldier. He was trained in fighting and protection. They became a group. Not official, not organized, but a group that shared a purpose. They wanted to protect Jiwoo. But more than that, they wanted to show the galaxy something different. They wanted to show that a person could be important and still be ordinary. "The Zixthari want to capture you," Teo explained. He had been looking at the station's security systems. "They are moving military units toward this station. The Quarvati want to protect you, but only so they can control you. Earth's government is confused. They do not know what to do with a citizen who is suddenly so important." "Why are they all so interested?" Jiwoo asked. She still did not fully understand what was happening. "Because of what you represent," Nari said. She was sitting at Jiwoo's small table, looking at information on her device. "The precursors created the first civilizations. They are like gods in galactic history. If you have their genetics, that means you might have their potential. You might have abilities or knowledge that could change everything. But I do not have any of those things," Jiwoo said. "I know," Nari said. "But they do not know that. They believe what they want to believe." Daejung stood by the window, watching the crowds outside. "We need a plan. They are going to try to take you soon. We need to decide what you are going to do." "I want to stay here," Jiwoo said. "I want to keep my apartment and my job and my life." "Then we need to make staying here more valuable than taking you," Daejung said. They came up with a plan. Nari would help Jiwoo send another message to the galaxy. This time the message would be different. Jiwoo would tell her story. She would explain that she was just a normal person. She would ask the galaxy to respect her choice to be left alone. They spent many hours working on what Jiwoo would say. They wanted her to be honest, but also to make people understand her. They wanted to show the galaxy that a Precursor-Class human was still a human, still a person with rights and choices. The day came when they sent the message. Jiwoo sat in front of a camera in her apartment. She looked tired, but she was determined. "I am writing to all of you who have been trying to contact me," she said. "I know that my classification has made me important to many of you. I understand that you see me as valuable. But I need you to understand something. I am a person. I have a right to choose my own life. I have a right to be ordinary." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I refuse to be studied. I refuse to participate in experiments. I refuse to be controlled by anyone. This is not because I am being stubborn or ungrateful. It is because accepting those things would mean giving up my right to be myself. And if I do that, then what makes me human?" The message went to every channel, every network, every part of the galaxy that could receive signals. The response was faster than they expected. The story spread across millions of platforms. Some beings supported Jiwoo, some did not understand her, some were angry with her, but the important thing was that everyone was talking about her choice, not just her classification. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. Workers from different species began talking about Jiwoo's choice. They began thinking about their own lives. They began thinking about their own classifications, and whether those classifications really meant what everyone said they meant. A group of low-class workers on one space station decided to refuse work until their classifications were reviewed fairly. Another group on a different planet held a peaceful gathering where they talked about the value of individual choice. Slowly, a movement was building, not a violent revolution, but something quieter and more powerful. An awakening. Min-Soo came to visit Jiwoo at her apartment. He brought news from the work center. "People are talking," he said. "Even the Zixthari managers are confused about what to do. Your message has changed things, not everything, but something." Jiwoo felt tired, but also hopeful. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know if her small act of resistance would matter in the end. But she had chosen to stand up for herself. That was something. Hae-jun, Tae-oh, Nari, and Dae-jung stayed in her apartment through the night. They did not talk much. They just sat together. They were her friends now. They had chosen to support her when everything was uncertain. That meant something. Outside the window, the crowds remained. The ships remained. The forces continued to watch each other carefully. But something had shifted in the galaxy. A question had been asked. A human woman had asked it. And now the entire universe was trying to find an answer. The Galactic Council called for an emergency session. Jiwoo received the message through official channels. They wanted her to come and speak before them. They wanted to hear her testimony directly. Hae-jun was against it. "It is too dangerous," she said. "Once you are on their ship, they can do anything. They can take you anywhere. They can do anything they want." "But I have to go," Jiwoo said. "If I refuse, they will think I am hiding something. They will think I am a threat. I need to show them that I am not a threat. I am just a person who wants to be left alone." Dae-jung agreed with Hae-jun, but he understood Jiwoo's decision. "I will come with you," he said. "I will stay outside the chamber. If anything goes wrong, we will get you out." They took a Zixthari ship from Station Nexus 7. The journey took 1 full day. Jiwoo looked out the window at the stars. They were beautiful and endless. She thought about how small she was in comparison to the universe, how small and ordinary. The Galactic Council's meeting chamber was enormous. It was built on an ancient station that had been the capital of the galaxy for centuries. The chamber itself was circular and open. Representatives from dozens of species sat on tiered seating that rose all around. The Zixthari occupied the highest seats. Below them were the Qorvathi. Lower still were representatives from hundreds of other species. Jiwoo stood in the center. She felt very small. She felt like everyone was watching her. Everyone was wondering what she would say. Everyone was trying to understand why a simple human woman had caused so much chaos. The Zixthari council leader spoke first. His name was Velmorax. He was enormous, even for a Zixthari. He was made of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. "Jiwoo Park of Earth," Velmorax said. His voice was deep and echoed through the chamber. "You have been classified as Precursor-Class. This is a designation that has not appeared in recorded history. We have called you here today to understand why you have rejected the opportunities this classification offers. Why do you refuse to work with us? Why do you refuse to help your own species and the galaxy at large?" Jiwoo took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment. She knew what she wanted to say. "Because," she said clearly, "I am a person, not a specimen, not a prophecy, not a commodity, a person." The chamber became very quiet. No one made any sound. "I understand that my classification is important to many of you," Jiwoo continued. "But I want you to understand something about my people, about humans. We have a long history of fighting for the right to be recognized as persons. We have fought against being owned, controlled, and classified. My ancestors died for the right to choose their own lives." She looked around at the different species. Some seemed to understand. Others looked confused. "The system of classification that exists in this galaxy is broken," Jiwoo said. "It assumes that a being's value is determined by their genetics, their bloodline, or their historical importance. But that is not true. A being's value is determined by what they choose to do, by the choices they make." Velmorax leaned forward. His 3 eyes focused on Jiwoo. "You are saying that our entire system of civilization is broken?" "I am saying that it limits what beings can become," Jiwoo said. "It tells someone from a low class that they can never be more than that. It tells someone from a high class that they must always be important. But what if a precursor-class person wants to be ordinary? What if an ordinary person wants to be extraordinary? Your system does not allow for that." A Qorvathi representative stood up. "Then what would you suggest? How should we organize our civilization?" "I do not have all the answers," Jiwoo admitted. "But I know that beings should be free to choose their own paths. A person should be judged by their actions and their choices, not by their classification. Another representative, this one from a species Jiwoo did not recognize, also stood. "This is interesting," the being said, "but it changes nothing. The Zixthari control the galaxy. The classifications keep order. Your ideas are interesting, but they do not change reality." "No," Jiwoo agreed. "I cannot change reality by myself, but I can choose my own path. And if enough other beings do the same, then reality will change." The chamber erupted. Different species began talking and arguing with each other. Some thought Jiwoo was a threat. Some thought she was visionary. Some thought she was simply confused. Velmorax raised his crystal hands, and the chamber became quiet again. "You have given us much to think about," the Zixthari leader said. "The council will deliberate on what you have said. You are free to return to Station Nexus 7, but understand this, Jiwoo Park. Your words have set something in motion. You have questioned the fundamental structure of galactic society. That is not something that is easily forgotten." Jiwoo left the chamber. She felt exhausted and terrified. She had exposed her true thoughts to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She did not know if she had made things better or worse. Daejung was waiting for her outside the chamber. "How did it go?" he asked. "I do not know," Jiwoo said honestly. "I told them the truth. I do not know if that was a mistake." On the journey back to Station Nexus 7, Jiwoo rested. She watched the stars pass by the window. She thought about what Velmorax had said. Her words had set something in motion. What that something was, she did not yet know. When she arrived back at the station, she discovered that her message had spread even further. Now billions of beings across the galaxy were talking about her words. Now workers were striking on hundreds of worlds. Now peaceful gatherings were happening on thousands of stations. Now the Zixthari system of control was being questioned openly for the first time in thousands of years. Haejun, Taio, Nari, and Minsu were waiting for her at her apartment. They had been watching the news feeds. They had been following the reactions. "What have you done?" Minsu asked, but he was smiling as he said it. "I do not know yet," Jiwoo said, "but I feel like the galaxy is changing. I just told them the truth." "Sometimes," Daejung said quietly, "the truth is the most powerful weapon of all." Outside the window, Jiwoo could see the station was different now. There were more beings of different species interacting with each other. There was less distance between the different classes. Change was beginning. Slow change, but real change. And it had started because one person had asked a simple question and refused to accept being classified as something she did not want to be. The scanner marked her as Precursor-Class. She asked if that meant free coffee. A humanity, fuck yeah. Science fiction story. Machi. Part 1, The Scanner's Verdict. Jiwoo stood in the sterile white chamber of the Galactic Classification Station, arms crossed as the Zixthari bioscan completed its analysis. The alien scanner was the size of a small building, its sensors humming with otherworldly precision. The Zixthari had ruled the known galaxy for 3 millennia, and their classifications determined everything: employment, social standing, even which worlds you could visit. The scanner's voice crackled through the chamber. Classification complete. Subject, Jiwoo Park, Terran female, age 26. Designation, Precursor-Class. The room fell silent. Even the attending Zixthari official, Velcris, a towering crystalline being with 6 appendages, seemed to pause mid-motion. Precursor-Class designation was rarer than supernovas. It meant the scanner detected within Jiwoo's DNA markers of an ancient precursor species, beings who had seeded the galaxy with potential civilizations eons ago. Such individuals were supposed to be extinct, myth-like figures spoken of in historical archives. Ji-Woo's dark eyes narrowed. After all the paperwork, the fee, and waiting in line for 6 hours, this was her reward. A classification so rare that nobody actually knew what to do with it. "Does this mean I get priority housing?" she asked, her Korean accent cutting through the sterile atmosphere. Velcris blinked all three of its eyes simultaneously, a sign of confusion among his species. "You inquire about housing? You have been marked as potentially harboring the genetics of the precursors themselves. You may be worth more than entire stellar systems to the right buyers." "I asked about housing," Ji-Woo repeated, pulling out her personal datapad. "Also, do Precursor-Class workers get free coffee in the break room? Because I've been drinking the cheap stuff at my data processing job, and it tastes like recycled fuel." Velcris consulted his database, something Ji-Woo suspected he had never done before. "There is no protocol for this inquiry." "Then let's make one," Ji-Woo said, standing up and brushing off her simple gray tunic. "I'm going back to work. My supervisor isn't going to care about some fancy classification if I'm late filing the morning reports." As she walked toward the exit, Velcris called out, "But the classification! You must understand its implications." Ji-Woo paused at the door and glanced back. "I understand it perfectly. Some ancient aliens were apparently my great-great ancestors, and now I've got a fancy label. What I don't understand is how that changes my rent or my coffee budget." She left the station, completely unaware that her casual dismissal of the most important classification in 1,000 years was already being transmitted across Galactic News Network broadcasts. Part 2. The interest within 48 hours, Ji-Woo's apartment was surrounded. She lived in the Terran quarter of Station Nexus 7, a modest orbital platform where humans worked data processing jobs and dreamed of better things. Her cramped one-bedroom unit, usually as quiet as a monk's retreat, suddenly had visitors outside its airlock, dozens of them. Zixthari merchants, Korvathi aristocrats, and representatives from the Intergalactic Commerce Guild all waited with various offers and threats. 10 million credits for genetic samples, one offered. "Transfer to our research facility, and we'll make you the most celebrated individual in the sector," another promised. 300,000 credits for temporary sterilization, guaranteeing no offspring to inherit your precursor genetics, a third proposed darkly. Ji-Woo ignored them all and went to her job. At the data processing center, her supervisor Min-Soo was oddly tense. Min-Soo was a fellow Korean human, pragmatic and experienced, someone who kept his head down and did his work. Today he pulled Ji-Woo into a private office immediately. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. "My job? I've filed 3,000 records this week." "No, I mean the classification. I heard on the news, Precursor-Class. Do you understand what everyone is saying about you?" Ji-Woo sat down, crossing her legs casually. "That my DNA is old and interesting. That apparently I'm descended from aliens who went around seeding civilizations. That people want to cut me up and study me or use me for breeding. The usual." Min-Soo stared at her like she'd announced she was made of solid platinum. "You're taking this remarkably well." "Why shouldn't I? It's not like I can change it. I'm the same person I was yesterday, except now I have a label. It's like finding out your parents' house was built on historically significant land. Interesting? Sure. Does it change my mortgage? No." Min-Soo rubbed his temples. "I'm going to make some calls. I know people. We might be able to keep this quiet, get you protective status. Tell them I appreciate it, but I'm not hiding," Ji-Woo said. "And I'm not selling myself either. The way I figure it, I'm more valuable alive and free than as some lab specimen or commodity." That night, Ji-Woo did something risky. She recorded a message on public channels and sent it galaxy-wide. She sat in her small apartment facing her personal holopad and spoke with the same casual confidence she usually reserved for complaining about work. "Hi, I'm Ji-Woo Park. Yes, I'm the human they're calling Precursor-Class. I want to be clear about a few things. First, my genetics are mine. I'm not selling samples, donating eggs, or submitting to any experiments. Second, I'm a citizen of Earth and a resident of Station Nexus 7, and I intend to keep my life as normal as possible. Third, and most importantly, everyone who shows up at my apartment making threats or bribery offers is trespassing, and I'll be filing complaints with station security. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work in the morning. She hit send. The message went viral across 1,000 platforms within hours. Humans praised her bravery and defiance. Aliens debated the audacity of a precursor-class specimen, rejecting the opportunity of a lifetime. Economists began calculating what her refusal meant for the genetic materials market. But something unexpected happened. People started to listen to her words, not just her classification. A human woman named Hai-Jun, a security officer stationed 3 levels down from Jiwoo, sent her a message. Need backup? I'm trained in zero-G combat and I'm tired of the silence. Whatever you're doing it right. Part 3. The Alliance. Within a week, Jiwoo's small apartment had transformed into an unofficial headquarters. Hai-Jun was there, along with several other humans Jiwoo had never met before, but who'd become unexpectedly devoted to her cause. There was Tayo, an engineer who'd worked on the station's security systems, Nari, a communications specialist, and Dae-jung, a former soldier who'd been medically discharged but never lost his edge. They weren't a militia, exactly. They were something more subtle, a network. The Zixthari have filed 17 legal motions to confine you for protective observation, Nari explained, pulling up holographic documents. The Quarvathi have offered sanctuary on their homeworld. The Commerce Guild is treating you like a commodity that's gone rogue. What about Earth? Jiwoo asked. Earth's government is furious, Tayo said. They're demanding an official explanation, threatening legal suits. But here's the thing. Earth doesn't have the power to demand much. We're new to galactic politics. But you've become a symbol. I don't want to be a symbol, Jiwoo said flatly. I want to drink coffee, file reports, and pay my rent. Dae-jung smiled slightly. That's exactly why you've become a symbol. Everyone out there is playing for power, advancement, wealth. You're the first precursor class in recorded history, and you asked about coffee. Do you understand how revolutionary that is? In a galaxy obsessed with classification and hierarchy, you treated the highest classification like an inconvenience. Hai-Jun leaned forward. But now we have to protect you, because others understand it too. The Zixthari want to preserve the status quo. They can't have a precursor class being cavalier about cosmic hierarchy. The Quarvathi want to recruit you. The Commerce Guild wants to profit from you. And Earth wants to weaponize you. Jiwoo stood and walked to her window. Through the transparent aluminum, she could see the vast stellar expanse, thousands of stars burning against the void. Somewhere out there were billions of lives, all following patterns established by those ancient precursors. Patterns of control, order, classification. Then we give them a different pattern, Jiwoo said quietly. We show them that the classification doesn't matter, that what matters is what you do with it. That's dangerous, Nari warned. So is coffee, Jiwoo countered. But people have been drinking it for centuries anyway. Part 4. The Testimony. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, and Jiwoo stood before them. The chamber was vast and ornate, designed to intimidate. Representatives from 47 major species filled the tiered seating, their diverse forms arranged in hierarchies that shifted depending on current political alliances. The Zixthari held prominent central positions. The Quarvathi occupied the luxury wing. Earth's representative, Ambassador Park Sung-ho, no relation to Jiwoo, though the coincidence delighted the media, sat in a humble position off to the side. Jiwoo wore her regular clothes, comfortable pants, a simple blouse. She'd refused the formal ceremonial garb they'd offered her. Heijun and Tayo waited outside, ready to extract her if security became hostile. The Zixthari council leader, a massive crystalline being named Velmorax, initiated the proceedings. Jiwoo Park of Earth, Velmorax's voice resonated through the chamber. You have been classified as Precursor-Class, a designation that occurs once every 1,000,000 cycles. The implications are staggering. Your very existence suggests that ancient precursor species may have been preparing some among us for a greater role in galactic history. Yet you have publicly refused all opportunities for study, protection, or advancement. The Council seeks understanding. Why? Jiwoo stepped forward, and the chamber fell silent. She could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. Because, she began, her voice steady, I'm a person, not a specimen, not a prophecy, not a commodity, a person. She let that sink in. I understand that my classification is significant to many of you, historically significant, financially significant, scientifically significant. But let me tell you what it means to me. It means someone looked at my DNA and put me in a box, same as every other classification in this galaxy. It means I've become valuable not for what I do or who I am, but for what my ancestors might have been. A ripple of confused murmurs moved through the chamber. My ancestors were human, Jiwoo continued. They walked on 2 legs, ate food, had families, and disagreed with each other. And if there's precursor DNA in my genes, that's interesting as history. But it doesn't make me more valuable than any of you. It doesn't give me wisdom I didn't earn. It doesn't give me the right to rule, to lead, or to be ruled and led because of genetics. She pointed toward the tiered seating, gesturing across all the assembled species. I'm here to tell the Council that your system of classification is broken. Not because it's inaccurate, but because it assumes that classification determines worth, that a being's value is fixed by biology or bloodline or historical accident. I've seen your records. I've read about how the Zixthari maintain order through classification, how the Korvathi distribute resources by class, how everyone assumes the precursors were somehow better, and therefore their descendants should be elevated. She took a breath. But what if they were just people? What if the precursors made mistakes? What if they seeded worlds not because they were wise, but because they were curious? What if we're all equal because we're all the result of the same ancient gamble, and we all have to find our own way forward? Ambassador Park Sung-ho was watching intently, his expression unreadable. I'm refusing your study, your protection, your opportunities, Jiwoo said. Not because I'm being stubborn or ungrateful, but because accepting them would validate the system I'm rejecting. I want to go back to my data processing job. I want to drink bad coffee in the break room with Min Soo. I want to live in my cramped apartment with my modest salary. And I want everyone watching this to understand that a human woman from Earth, despite being classified as Precursor-Class, decided that her own life was worth more than cosmic significance. She stepped back from the speaker's position. That's my testimony. The chamber erupted in chaos. Part 5. The rippled Jiwoo had expected consequences. She hadn't expected them to be quite so widespread. The news of her testimony spread through galactic networks like a contagion. Among the lower-class workers, the underprivileged, the individuals trapped in rigid classification hierarchies, her words resonated. It started with strikes. Workers from 17 different species refused to work until their classifications were reviewed, demanding that competence and merit matter as much as genetic designation. Then came the protests. Hundreds of thousands gathering on station platforms and planetary cities, all chanting variations of the same message. Worth is not classification. The Zixthari and Korvathi were not amused. Velmorax made an announcement. Jiwoo Park was considered a threat to galactic stability and was to be contained. Entire fleets began moving toward Station Nexus 7. The Quarvathi responded by sending their own ships to provide sanctuary. Earth mobilized its limited military capabilities, not because they were strong, but because they refused to abandon one of their own. Minsu came to Jiwoo's apartment with urgent news. "They're going to try to take you. All factions are mobilizing. Earth is offering asylum. The Zixthari are preparing enforcement actions. We have maybe 6 hours before this gets violent." But Jiwoo didn't run. Instead, she made another broadcast. She sat in her apartment, Haijun beside her, and spoke directly to the galaxy. "I'm not leaving," she said simply. "I'm not going to become a symbol of revolution, a figurehead for those who want to fight the system. I'm just going to be here, in my apartment, doing my job. And if that's so threatening that you need to send ships and soldiers, then maybe it's time to ask yourself why the truth is so dangerous." She invited them all to Station Nexus 7 to come and see for themselves, to see a human woman, possibly descended from ancient precursors, living an ordinary life and asking ordinary questions. What happened next surprised everyone. Thousands came, workers, merchants, scholars, scientists from dozens of species. They converged on Station Nexus 7, not to fight, but to observe, to witness what a Precursor-Class individual would do when left alone to live normally. Would she create wonders? Would she show cosmic wisdom? Would she transcend her station? She went to work. She filed reports. She complained about the coffee. She had lunch with Minsu. She attended a zero-gravity volleyball match with Haijun. She lived. And in that living, something profound shifted. People realized that neither hierarchy nor equality was the answer. It was the freedom to simply be. The understanding that genetic classification and cosmic role didn't override personal agency and choice. Dao in Part 6, The New Coffee. 3 months after her testimony, Jiwoo was promoted to Senior Data Analyst. It wasn't because of her Precursor-Class status. It was because she was good at her job. Minsu wrote the recommendation, and 2 other human colleagues, Nari and Taio, provided additional endorsements based on merit. Her salary increased by 30%. It wasn't a cosmic fortune, but it was enough to upgrade her apartment to a 2-bedroom with a view that included a visible stellar nursery. She'd invited Haijun to be her roommate, and they'd spent an afternoon arguing about how to arrange the furniture, an argument that felt beautifully normal. The bigger change was Galactic. The Zixthari's stranglehold on classification had loosened. The Quarvathi found themselves unable to exploit a cause that had become about individual agency rather than revolutionary fervor. Earth's government, emboldened by Jiwoo's quiet defiance, began demanding seat changes in the Galactic Council, and surprisingly, they got them. But the most important change happened in Station Nexus 7's break room. The cheap, fuel-tasting coffee was gone. The station administrator, responding to what had become a running joke across the galaxy, had approved a budget increase for break room supplies. Now there were 3 varieties of coffee, including a Korean blend that Haijun had specially imported. Jiwoo stood at the coffee station one morning, adding cream to a cup of the Korean blend, when a young Quarvathi entered, a junior analyst, clearly new to the station. The being hesitated, unsure of the customs. "First time?" Jiwoo asked, holding up the carafe. "This one's smooth, not too bitter." I'm not sure if I'm permitted to use this facility," the Quarvathi said nervously. "My classification level usually confines me to—" "Coffee doesn't care about classifications," Jiwoo interrupted gently. "Neither do I. Grab a cup." As she poured for the Quarvathi, she caught her reflection in the break room window. A human woman, ordinary in every way, standing beside an alien, in a small station orbiting a planet that had been insignificant just months ago. Velcris entered, the same Zixthari who'd first delivered her classification 3 months prior. He approached Ji-woo with what might have been hesitation. "I have reviewed the galactic economic reports," he said formally. "Your refusal to capitalize on your Precursor-Class designation has resulted in a 47% decrease in the genetic materials market, a 23% increase in interspecies labor integration, and a 65% reduction in classification-based employment disputes." "So, good results?" Ji-woo asked, sipping her coffee. "The results are statistically significant," Velcris confirmed. "I wish to convey that your choice to be ordinary has created extraordinary consequences." Ji-woo smiled. "That's the thing about being human. We've been telling stories for thousands of years about the importance of choice, agency, and the right to define yourself. Maybe it took a Precursor-Class designation to make people listen to those old human philosophies. Or maybe," she added, glancing at the Quarvathi contentedly enjoying their coffee, "it just took someone willing to ask an awkward question." She raised her cup toward Velcris. "Free coffee for everyone. That was always the dream." Velcris's crystalline form seemed to shimmer, the alien equivalent of laughter, perhaps. Proctor's Epilogue. 6 months later, Earth would propose and have accepted the Declaration of Individual Significance. It established that classification by species, genetics, or historical designation could not determine an individual's social standing, economic opportunity, or personal rights. Beings would be judged by their actions and choices. It wouldn't solve everything. Politics and self-interest were universal. But it created a framework for change, born from the simple question of a woman who'd asked if being Precursor-Class meant free coffee. Ji-woo would never become a symbol, though she'd tried her best to refuse the title. But she would become something more important, an ordinary person who'd shown an entire galaxy that ordinariness, when chosen authentically, could be revolutionary. And every morning, she'd go to her job, take her coffee break with friends of multiple species, and continue her quiet rebellion against a universe that wanted to classify, simplify, and categorize her into cosmic insignificance. The universe, it seemed, had finally learned something humans had known all along. Nobody's worth is measured by their classification.